Welcome yet again to this particular segment, Business Insight. This is Cynthia Doreen. I'll be taking you right through from 9 to 10. Now remember, we have been talking about a couple of thematic areas, and amongst them have been the cost implications of HIV/AIDS to Ugandans, to Uganda as a whole. What is happening? We have had a look at the strategy, the past strategy, of course, well known, very, very successful, and Uganda has been for long quite a poster child, very able to come out and say, this is what we did, and remarkably brought down the prevalence of HIV/AIDS during that particular time. However, it is of concern that we have had a couple of increased rates, infection rates coming up in the recent. Now we want to find out as well, what is the role of the religious institutions in Uganda? They are a formidable, quite a big, have a great say in the morality, in the leadership, in the way Ugandans get to approach some of these contentious issues. Now today our topic is analyzing the effectiveness of religious institutions in the fight against HIV/AIDS in Uganda. To give us insight on this, we've got an amazing personality, well known for this, and quite vocal, and we will introduce him to you later. This is Canon Professor Gideon Byamjisha, who prefers to be called Canon Gideon. He is a teacher, a theologian, global faith voice on ending inequalities and ending HIV/AIDS. He's also the team lead for Foka Gifo, as well as the patron for INERELA, which is the international network of religious leaders living with and or affected by HIV. You're welcome, Canon.
Thank you very much, Doreen. Thanks very much.
It is quite a delight to have you.
It's an equal joy, I think. It's mutual.
Yes.
Because I'm also excited to be invited on a business forum, discussing the cost implications, and how we can reduce those costs using our low-lying fruit, the culture and religion.
Yes.
You know, that's
those are always entwined.
That's a resource we have that once we utilize it well, we can climb any mountain.
Surely.
Yeah.
And that is so true. In the early 90s or late 80s, when all this was just coming out, the very first batch of ARVs that were made, actually were brought over to the market here, could only be accessed on the black market, as Dr. Watiti told us earlier on in the weeks. But right now it is, and the cost implication of this was so high, such that it was quite huge. But giving you just a little bit of a sneak peek into that, frequently the countries with high HIV prevalence that face the heaviest burden in financing their HIV programs do not per se accordingly go as in this is how we shall be able to do so. But low-income countries where each infection costs several times more than the GDP per capita and domestic resources are fewer, those are the ones that have a challenge. And Uganda is among those that have that particular burden. Not only is our economy not doing quite well, not only is 85% of our HIV budget funded by external funding, which has been slashed, it is also the fact that sometimes the strategies may not actually be what was intended. And these are things that we have been looking at all throughout the week. Now, getting back, what do you think has the religious institutions, especially that you are a leader and quite vocal about, been so instrumental about?
Okay. The religious leaders have been critical. And but also we need to keep in mind that we are not talking about all religious leaders. We are talking about religious leaders who happen to serve in key countries and continents. When we talk about AIDS, this is not a global disease.
It is not a global disease?
No. 90% of deaths around AIDS have happened in Africa. 90% of the orphans are in Africa. 80% of all the virus in women in the world is in African women.
Yes.
70% of the new infections are in Africa. And actually, not all of Africa again.
Yes.
That even within Africa, a key continent when it comes to HIV, we have key countries And Uganda is one of the 21 countries that are driving the AIDS epidemic. That if we managed to stop AIDS in Uganda and its 20 sister countries, it will be game up for AIDS.
Yes, yes.
So you've heard people talk about key populations. And then we forget that behind key populations, there are key families. And behind key families, there are key communities and community groups. And these are within the key countries where to be in that community, in that country, you are more vulnerable. You are higher at risk than someone in Belgium,
Yes.
or someone in Norway. You know, so religious leaders within those key countries have a unique calling, a unique responsibility to do something extra that religious leaders in those low burden countries
Yes,
may be spared to say.
Yes, but when you look at the history, of course you did mention that HIV/AIDS is not AIDS is not really a global disease. It is, because it is a global burden.
I really wanted to emphasize a point that
I do know that the point that you made mention that of course the impact varies, and when it comes down to the African continent, of course we have seen the African continent get the highest of that particular share of the burden. But this does not mean that elsewhere it is not there. But now getting back into our African continent, this is a continent that's still heavily looking at the traditional systems. These are how our societies mainly are, and in most cases the religious leaders are still a little bit quite conservative in the way that they approach some of these. In fact, in most cases they have been quite a number of concerns that they are not as outing as they are meant to be. Now this is a place in which you have worked it. Have you actually seen this?
You know, you have to be empathic to religious leaders.
Empathetic.
Empathic. You have to be compassionate with them.
Why?
Because when AIDS was introduced, or when we came to realize about a reality called AIDS, the religious leaders in Africa were introduced to it through a bad lens. The first people who began talking about AIDS talked about AIDS as a moral disease.
Yes.
As a disease that
was because you have no morals.
Get when you are morally worse, when you are sexually deviant, when you are not following rules of religion and culture. In fact, AIDS is not the first name for HIV. The first name was greed.
Was greed?
Greed.
Greed?
Yes, G-R-I-D-S.
Greeds.
Greeds.
Because of the network in the
gay related immunodisease syndrome.
Yes.
So people thought that because the gays were the highest infected.
Yes.
So, and because the gay community was ostracized and stigmatized, then they say, oh, it serves them right.
God punishing
it is a gay-related syndrome, meaning if you are doing those things or you are one of them. Yeah. So when that type of thinking came to Africa and we couldn't spot the gays very quickly, then we said, who are the nearest?
To the gays.
To the gays. Then the commercial sex workers were a target.
Oh dear.
The truck drivers who were coming from Mombasa were another.
And sleeping at every
and
post.
then they said, and plus those with loose morals within our midst. So if you are having sex before marriage or outside
going
marriage.
to the bars, and I remember actually coming to think about it. I remember some of the photos that were there.
Yes.
Yes. It was someone with a cigarette.
Yes. You get it. Yes.
Now it makes sense.
So the religious leader in Africa was introduced to AIDS in that way, and so they had to respond similarly.
As a moral issue.
As a moral issue, as an evil, something that if you are faithful
you will not.
You are abstinent. You are God-fearing. That's not your disease.
You should be excluded from the healing.
So you should be empathetic with me when I came up and I told my bishops and others that I'm positive, and they were like,
"Oh, that was it.
What are you talking about?" You, even the counselor actually who gave me the results, like, man of God, because I was in my collar.
Yes.
Man of God, even you.
That was the counselor.
Yeah. Now, if a counselor can do that, what about the religious leader who have had it? So I have really had. I'm a person who comes from a different crop of leaders. People who have chosen the capability development approach. You've heard the Amartya Sen and the other professors of economics who are saying, let's move away from blaming people. Let's see how to empower them. This is how to build capacity. So when I'm dealing with religious leaders, I come in that
through
route
the capacity
to say, where can I be of help? Where can I be of added value, given that really God has given me all this education, 5 degrees, you are a canon in the church. That means really you have deep insight. So how do I use that unique responsibility to be of added value? And to the faith communities, the congregations, and the religious leaders who lead them, plus those of people of faith who are either at risk or are impacted. They've lost their parents. They are burdened by picking all the fees and all of that. Or they are HIV positive. But they are people of faith.
Yes.
And when they go to church, they face the wrath. They are misunderstood.
Because they are the gatekeepers of morality. Yes, they are the ones that should be the cleanest of the clean, and this is how it's perceived.
So this topic is very good because it will help us again move
forward
a step further to say, okay, let's look. Because when you look, for example, at the 21 countries, Africa is the most religious continent in the world now.
It is.
But it's the most sick. So we must say, wait a minute, what is happening here?
True.
Because our God is a God of health,
yes.
of peace, of prosperity. So how come that we are talking about these inverted dynamics? And it comes from that misconnection. Because in medicine we've been told that a wrong diagnosis will give you a wrong prognosis. And a wrong prognosis will give you a wrong prescription. And then you won't heal.
You never get healed.
Yes. So getting the dynamics right, what is AIDS all about? If people in a region can understand that we are dealing with a disease that comes when you are deprived of something. Not when you do something. And then when you because we have the reach.
Yes.
We have the reach. We are where government is not. We have the presence. We are with the people at birth, at baptism,
throughout from the minute they are born.
Yes. Then we have the communication network. You say it here.
It travels like
it travels. And then we have the tradition of care
and support.
You talk about love, you are talking about faith communities. But because AIDS was moralized,
a moral issue,
the people who need the love most to escape their vulnerability don't receive it. They only receive blame. They receive, dismissal.
Yes.
You say you deserve it.
You're actually put on the side.
Yeah. So that is it. That we need
a different approach,
a different lens Nehemiah is a very interesting guy. In chapter 2, verse 17, he called people together because he had seen, he asked, how is Israel and how are my people? And they said, we are in deep shit. We are in deep problems. Jerusalem is broken down, people are sick, those who survived being taken are not good. So he felt really touched. And then he wanted to help. So he came. And then he did the survey, and indeed things were bad. But his question was, how could things get this so bad when people are inside? So he called them together. And Nehemiah chapter 2:17 says, do you see the trouble we are in? Now, seeing is different from looking.
Seeing is different from looking?
Yes.
How? They both use the eyes.
Seeing means you are going deeper. When I say, did you see Doreen? And then someone say, oh, yes. I said, what was he wearing? What was she wearing? And then the other ones get stuck. Oh, I
did not take particular interest.
So they looked, but they didn't see. Seeing has mental faculties. It has emotional faculties. Is this emotion I have, will it reduce the problem or increase it?
Yes.
Like when you see Parliament, sometimes when they are making the laws, the anger is too much. Now, when you are too angry, it means really
make a coherent.
Yes, so the emotions have to be the right type of emotion. Even at home, we know. When you are too angry, you make mistakes.
Yes.
Then the social dynamics, I'm glad you are a social scientist, so when you talk about the social intelligence, is critical in seeing. Then the spiritual intelligence,
as well.
The integrity of refusing the temptation to be self-righteous. Because that's a battle. Yes. It's a spiritual battle. How do I communicate this without appearing that for me I made it,
okay.
I'm
yes,
okay.
I am way above this.
Yes. So the faith communities have done a lot in AIDS. We were part of the first responders. Of course, we lost the first decade, 1981 to 1990. That was a lost decade.
Because the moment you say we were one of the first responders, I think the church was literally very quiet, apart from getting there to
I'm talking about the time when everyone was responding.
Okay.
1981 to 1991, no one responded. We call it the lost decade.
Effectively.
Chiwandi decade, that was a lost decade. That's
no one responded effectively.
Yes, the only one who was active was this woman who was giving soil in Masaka.
Everyone was still thinking it was witchcraft.
Then there was 1991 to 2000, when people are waking up and saying, oh, we have to do something. And the church did something.
It did.
Government did something. That's the time we started the Uganda AIDS Commission, 1992. 1991, 29th August, my bishops are meeting in Mukono to put the first ever AIDS response, systematic.
Yes.
And they came up with a very important resolution, because those days the condom was a big issue. And my bishops put and said, for us as Anglicans, we will talk about condoms in the marital context.
Okay.
Of course, the Catholics said, for us,
we shall not go there.
We will only focus on where we are strongest. But together with them, we produced miracles. The ABC helped at a time when there was nothing else to say.
True.
But 1991 also started the testing. And then 2000, the faith communities are really responding and looking that's the time my network is born, the international network of religious leaders living with HIV. That's the time World Council of Churches, World Vision, many faith
Organizations came up.
It came up. Youth Alive in Uganda. Youth Alive is our motto.
Yes,
Youth Alive.
yes.
You know, that time with Sister Dagan
Yes.
and others. So we did a lot. But now, the low-lying fruit is over.
It is. You must reach for the
Now, the last decade, the 2010 to 2020, the research showed something that is tough for the faith communities. And that's why, again, I'm saying our faith communities, our congregations, our leaders, we need a lot of love.
And a different strategy.
We need to love them before we can blame them. Ask me why. Because the research has revealed that the groups in our communities that we most stigmatize, that we most shame, that we most deny that they exist, that we most exclude from our laws and others, are the ones that have the highest burden of HIV. That when you ask a question, where is these new transmissions coming from?
Yeah.
They are coming from 4 groups of people. 1, the men having sex with men. 2, the injecting drug users. 3, the commercial sex work. 4, the adolescent girls and young women.
Yes.
And probably the 5th and 6th is the fishermen, fisher folk, and the people, our
Trucking.
officers in uniform.
Yes, those ones were also included.
But you can really see that the first 3 groups are problematic for us, the faith communities.
Yeah.
That suddenly, the people you have
You don't
spent
want to approach.
centuries, yes,
The ones that you want to ignore
Yes.
are the ones that
are the ones God is saying, if you want to defeat this disease, show them love, give them care, improve their access to services, let them have information when they need it.
and yet these are the very same batch that you want to ignore.
Yes.
For long, you would want that these are pushed over to the civil service, the civil society
Yeah.
organizations.
So that's why I'm saying we need a lot of prayer and need
A different
lot of
strategy.
empathy and a different strategy that critiques how love, because we are strongest on love. So we now say, so how is love being
How loving are we?
deployed? Exactly. How loving are we in science? How loving are we in religion and culture? Then when we finish that, we go to B. How loving are we in sexual matters? When you look, for example, that the 600,000 girls that were defiled during COVID were defiled by people of faith in their homes. People who go to mosque, they go to church. They are the ones who defiled the 600,000 who got pregnant during
Because
COVID.
they are having that within the homes.
Yeah, they didn't come from Kenya. They were Ugandans.
Oh dear.
So how do we apply love?
It's different when you say it like that.
How do we apply love in economics, in trade? Who is putting food on the table? And if they are putting it on, are they putting it with strings attached
Or without.
or not? When you give this girl a job, do you give them a
expectant.
job them and lovingly, or do you say, by the way, we have to talk? When they give you this intern to supervise, do you supervise them with love or with lust? If you are a border guy, you go to church, you go to mosque, you have this girl jumping on your border. Do you give them a service faithfully, lovingly, or lustfully? If you are a landlord, are you using your landlordness to love
The tenant.
gainingly, or are you using it as a bait? Ne bw'oba tolina sente tuteesa.
Yes. And these are things that are happening right now.
So that is why now we are saying, okay, how is this love going in economics field? And then lastly, how is love being applied in the justice system, in the legislative assembly, and in the correctional facilities,
yes,
and probation facilities? When they are saying, oh, you are too young to go to prison, we are putting you to camp register. What is happening there?
Yes.
And those who go to prison, I've seen people, for example, say, when people who are convicted of being gay, they should be sent to prison.
Yes.
Now,
that has been done.
If you are serving anal sex, then don't send people to prison, because that's
why it will be the highest.
You are going to make it worse. So, Doreen, you can really see that we need prayers. That God is saying, we are now like Jonah. Jonah was running away from evangelizing some people and giving them a service, and God was saying,
come back.
That's where I need you. That's where I need you. So how do we love people who are strange to us? And how do we love people who are minorities among us? I have that bitter experience myself, that at a time when I needed love, no one was giving it to me.
Because maybe they didn't know how to give.
Because I was left-handed, and the people were beating me. The teacher of English beats, the one of reading beats, the one of... the whole day I'm being beaten. Then I go home thinking my mom will be
a little bit
empathetic.
Comfort, yes.
Kube is waiting. We say, let's pray for food. I put the hand, she beats. Then I go home and I sleep without food. It's even surprising how I survived
during that time.
So there are things we misunderstand, but because of our self-righteousness, we assume we have all the answers. Instead of going to the Lord and say, Lord, what are you talking about? There is a book I am reading about called To Love.
Yes.
And one of the qualities for us to love successfully is to ask for the gift of discernment.
True.
Discernment. What is God saying in this situation? Look at my bishop, Bishop Samuel, who people really don't credit for my life because I speak more, people invite me, but probably people should invite Samuel. Bishop Samuel
who?
Sekade.
Sekade.
Meets a priest who he's never seen, and the priest says, I need a job here. The bishop says, oh yeah, I've given you a job, go to teach in Namugongo. And the priest turns back and says, thank you for giving me the job, but there is something I've not told you. Oh, what is it? I am HIV positive. And remember, that's 1995, 96. When the attitude...
it was totally a different... Yes. It was a different thing altogether.
He keeps quiet for a minute. And I think that's the time he's looking for discernment. Yes. He's praying for discernment. And for me, I closed my eyes because I was ready for a slap. And he comes, I close my eyes, and then he prays with me and prays for me and blesses me. Whew.
That was life-changing. That was life-changing.
And then he says, leave that job. Come and work with me in my office. We have a lot of aides in the diocese. You are going to be helpful. Number 2, I am going to invite you to my house. You are going to stay with me. I want to nurse you personally.
That was Bishop Samuel
Sekade, Bishop of Namirembe, now retired.
On that note, let's take a short break. This is quite a lot coming in regards to the different attitudes, the support systems, but obviously when it comes down to a strategy that gets to alleviate and attack a problem head on, you need something that is not business as usual. Let's take a short break and we'll be right back after this message.
Smart 24, driving business.
My friend, just enter. Everyone now has all access to Pearl Magic Prime. Kasim, give this man some biscuits.
They're over.
They're over. But you see these people here, they are on GoTV Plus, like you. But now they can watch big shows like Sanyu, or they can watch Beloved and they cry. So my friend, from now on, it's more magic to Uganda's best shows on GoTV Plus.
You used to tell me that I don't make you happy. All that time you would be complaining. I'll call you every day, yeah yo, baby dondolo.
You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks, Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000. Or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
75 days since the last day of last season. We are ready to do it all again.
Phil Foden is having the season of his life. Brilliant! Just brilliant! That is quite something!
Buy a decoder for only 40,000 shillings and get all the football on DSTV.
Smart 24, driving business.
Welcome back from the break. Let's get down to the statistics straight away because this is quite an interesting perspective to how the church can adopt a different strategy, and of course the cost implication towards mitigating and eliminating HIV/AIDS from Uganda. Let's take a look at some of the statistics. It has been fronted, of course, that Catholics account for 39.3% in Uganda, Anglicans 32.0%, Pentecostals 11.1%, Christians 2.1%, as well as, of course, you have the Muslims coming in as well at 13.7%. These, of course, are ever changing. We're yet to find out what is the latest that is coming in from, given the census that was carried out recently. But getting to look at it, this is the latest as well, talking about it, that came in much earlier than that, was located in Uganda, a country of a couple of million of people. At that particular time had 9 million Anglicans, but of course the numbers have gone upwards as of that time when that news came out. Now let's look at the cost implications of this. We know for sure that we still have quite a big chunk of Ugandans being far beyond the poverty line, living far beyond the poverty lines. The livelihoods, of course, have an issue, and this is why when it comes down to the program-based budgeting that the country has adopted of recent, it is looking at pushing as much as possible the needed resources for Ugandans to better themselves. We also know that some of the impacts, the negative impacts of living with HIV, is the fact that it totally decreases your productivity. If you aren't on ARVs, it decreases your productivity, but also has quite a burden on the care systems, the support systems around you. Now, given all this information and how Uganda needs to get out of poverty, how Uganda needs to transition as quickly as possible out to the next middle level line of development and having the economy on its right footing, we need to understand, is it all about this wonderful strategy that you brought about emanating from love? Yes, coming in from love. This is, I felt so profoundly touched when you mentioned that, because I said, if this was a sermon at the very pulpit, this is the sort of impactful sermon that changes lives. Now, can we move on to the next level and see how to activate this sermon? How do we make it practical?
Okay.
Yes.
So how we make it practical is looking at the sectors, the critical sectors, that where that love has to be manifest and expanded. First, look at the structural drivers of the epidemic. So you put love there.
You put love there. And this love also comes along with its resources, of course. It is not love per se.
No.
Because we have to be very careful and knowing this canon.
In budgeting, you know.
Yes. And we have to be particular
because
about
take a sente wolaba. Omutima goguliwa. You know, the Bible is very particular that you put your treasure where your heart is. Now we've not seen government heart in AIDS, because about 80% plus is donor funded.
Definitely.
Of course, we are happy that the government contributes whatever it is, but the question behind us is, suppose these donors pull out like they have done.
Yes, like they've slashed the budgets. What
so
happens?
So that love we are talking about is in three forms also. It is love that puts the resources where it should belong, and then the love that keeps the resources there without
being
leaking.
Diverted.
Yes.
Yes, that's big. That's a big topic. Yes.
and then the love that is available, effective, and affirmative. You get the point?
Yes.
It puts money there,
keeps it where it's
keeps it well, and then it is empathic to people. Because we are talking about real people. People who are hurting, people who have lost lives, people who have lost parents, or who have a brother or a sister paining. Now, the biggest issue really with young people is that when they are positive, and then they disclose their partner, the partner runs away. Now the girls are like, now maybe I just keep quiet.
Yes.
But I don't want to kill people with my virus. You know, people are looking for love, real love. How do I take my medicine without being laughed at? How do I talk about my struggles
situation
without being minimized or dismissed
and looked at differently?
Yes. So that's why you even see suicide cases happening, increasing.
Mental health.
Yeah, because people are not understood. They are not given a space.
But it also is.
Sometimes it is not you doing something. It's just being there.
It is also well known, canon, that what people don't understand, they set aside. What they don't understand, they eliminate. Yes, if they cannot eliminate it, they ostracize it. And say, no, what, this is an isolated case. Can we talk about what we can do? For example, in most cases, I believe with the different approaches that have been there, it is far easier, I think, for religious leaders to come out and say, can we help Can we have a helping hand given to the families affected by HIV/AIDS, rather than coming up and saying, can we actually talk about HIV/AIDS, me and you who are seated? It is far easier because it's a sanitized version to say, can I give you beans? Can I skill you? Can I talk to you about how to keep yourself better? Because you have been affected as a family. But when it comes down preventively, and this is the challenge right now, even looking at the recent government strategies that have actually been down on ground, apart from eliminating mother-to-child transmission and then coming in with safe male circumcision, most of it has been literally on the treatment aspect, which we also do understand can trickle back, because you're trying to prevent those ones who are already infected from infecting others, ensuring that those ones who definitely are out there can be able to, during the 90-90 approach, have all this ability to check, yes, get tested, be able to get onto ARVs immediately, and of course have the viral load suppressed, which is very important. But we still need the other bulk of the population having the preventive.
Yeah, we need, and you know, when God, the reason God has kept me alive for this long
is to talk about this,
is to see that I'm adding some value on the faith community response and the national response. And that's why he gave me a team of young people to work with, Friends of Canon Gideon Foundation.
Yes.
We've graduated 3,000 young people. We've done ministry in 60 countries. And we've produced models that are helpful. One of the models we produced was the one that addresses that point you have said, that AIDS is not about you talking about it.
It's the
or even calling people to, because faith leaders usually say, but now again, there is this disease.
Yes.
It has no cure, it has no vaccine.
And
so abstain.
And indeed, that's how most of the sermons would start. But now again.
Yeah. So abstain. If you can't, be faithful. If you can't, use condoms. Bemufa, don't think Sivagambie. And they wash their hands like pirates.
Surely.
In Namibia, when I went there and they told me, oh, for us we added a D. I said, what is it? We said, if you can't abstain and you can't be faithful and you are even too stupid to use condoms, die.
Oh dear. Just like that.
Yes. So that's when we said, wait a minute. The faith community needs help here. First of all, even abstinent people can get HIV.
True.
2, even faithful people, 81%, go to the Google and look at it, 81% of women who are positive in Africa never got the virus from anyone else apart from either their man or their boyfriend. So they are faithful, but faithfully infected. Then the condoms, of course, is not what you do when a B has failed. Because that means you are stigmatizing like a thing. When Gideon goes, you've not seen how I struggle when I'm buying condoms. When you give me condoms, and people are looking at my collar,
yes,
and they are like, oh my God.
How dare.
Did you say condoms or Colgate? And then I say,
It must be such a moment.
It's tough. But
we had this
that's what they have had.
We had this conversation yesterday about the difficulty, still the different attitudes that come about when you are asking for condoms.
And I'm telling this girl,
counter.
look, I'm not a sinner, I'm not going to fornicate. I know that's what you are,
Yes.
me and my wife are positive.
You have to talk about yourself.
So that's why we said, do you know, we need to give the church a better strategy. And we summarized it in a song. What can defeat these AIDS? Nothing but a comprehensive love response. Multiplying, yes, and safe, and eliminating SIDM.
And eliminating what? SIDM.
Those are 3 acronyms.
SIDM.
There is SIDM, which stands for stigma, shame, denial, discrimination, inaction, and misaction. So you have to eliminate that. Then you have to multiply YESA, which means youth empowerment, skilling, and accompaniment. At every stage, at each struggle the young person is going through.
You must be there with them to
Yes,
support them.
that's the yes, sir. And then the save is S, safe behaviors and practices. A, access to treatment and nutrition.
Yeah.
V, voluntary counseling and testing. E, empowering those who are vulnerable or are already HIV positive. Olaba olubimbi luli awo.
That is wonderful.
The love responsibility on each.
It actually it gives, if there is ever a word, it actionizes. If that word exists, it gives action
Yes.
to all the sermons.
Yes.
How many?
And then we crown it by saying, if we do what we can, God will do what we can't. There is much in our history to give us hope and courage.
What?
Oh, precious is that truth that treats, prevents, and hopes in God. Nothing else that we know, nothing but a comprehensive love response.
That is.
Your point.
That
You've
is-
done your Rubimbi in YESA,
Yes.
youth empowerment. You've done your Rubimbi in multiplying safe practices,
Yes,
access
yes.
to treatment, voluntary testing, empowering. You've done your Rubimbi in fighting stigma, shame, denial. Then let God do the rest.
And with this wonderful approach, how many key players of the religious institutions are part and parcel of this? Are they on board with strategies such as this? Are they on board? We will be taking you.
That's the model.
We will be taking you through a couple of these. I want
So,
to get down to it, Canon.
What I want us to do together
Canon.
before the year ends.
Canon, let us first talk about this
Yes.
so that we can find out, with this amazing, eliminating inequitable access to freedom from limited YESA, all these different acronyms
Yes.
coming in, wonderful. How many of the stakeholders, the key stakeholders in those religious institutions are on board or part and parcel even understand this?
Government, after listening to what we are saying, and said, this is a really good thing. Can we put it into a strategy? So for the first time in 2021, we drafted a national faith sector response on ending AIDS.
That's
It was-
2021.
Yeah, 2026.
Yes.
I was the chairman of the technical working group. Dr. Watiti was the consultant to put it all together. We had a very big team, and then we brought all the faith leaders, including our presidents, to look at it.
Yes.
And it is now in practice. It has those three phases, sections: young people, the service part, and the stigma part. So the next now is to say, can we have resources to evaluate what has happened? This is 2024.
Almost just 2 years ago.
And
it closes.
how have people received this? What are they doing? How are they doing it? We have a conference for that in December to look at what is each one doing in YESA, in the SAVE, and in the SIDM eradication. And then to see what are the gaps in each of those love, so that people can have a better way of dealing with AIDS.
Yes.
So to fulfill our commitment to say we will add value on increasing love consciousness in the three areas, love competence in the three areas, and love resilience, because it's not easy to love. You have to put 11 issues to love successfully when it comes to AIDS. 11 issues. One is the theology must be right.
I think
Then,
to me, even when I'm looking at all these wonderful approaches, I'm trying to remember in my mind, when was the last time maybe I saw a testing camp patched in front or pitched right in front of the Muslim mosque. When was the last time I saw a call out? Yes, and this is in aspect to that arm of voluntary testing. When was the last time I saw or I had any message or saw a march through town saying, can we come and test ourselves at Church of Uganda or the Catholic Church? When was the last time?
Exactly.
Yes, when was the last time I saw the men of the collar get down there to the section of maybe TASO or these others to actually pray for them and also talk to the supportive units that are with those people? When was the last time all this happened? When was the last time? Because we want to see the actions. The actions within the community are the ones that actually bear the most fruit. You may have this within the church, and Canon, we have to talk about this. You may have this within the church, but lo and behold, it has to get out into the community.
Exactly. It has to be practical.
Yes.
That's why we say that the AAA leaders are the people with the AAA love. So we have a good response, but it must be made a great response.
Yes, it must be activated.
And to make it a great response, they have to do what you are saying, that at church, at congregational level, love must be seen. In the three areas. How are you defeating stigma?
And we know for sure how conservative some of these religious leaders
How are you defeating stigma?
Maybe they're saying, if we continuously put out this tent and bring the testing kits, then they will not come next Sunday. Because
that's what I did with Bishop Sekade. You remember him saying, leave that seminary job, work with me in the office. We started the TASO model in the faith communities. So we are not saying come for testing. No, I would go to Mengo Hospital. First of all, I would go to UNFPA, get the money.
Yes.
We want to go to the parishes. Can you help? Testing one person is this. We want to test 200. They would give me the money. I take it to Mengo. Now give me counselors, give me, the lab technicians. We go.
Yeah.
Ejungo, Namulonge, we work. Namayumba, all those we started post-test clubs. We didn't call them HIV positive clubs.
You call them post-test?
Post-test. Abemanyi nti mumanyi status yamu. Don't tell us. But the important thing is to know.
To know.
Are you positive? Are you negative? Because you can't fight.
You can't know what you don't.
You can't fight AIDS unless you know. Like me now, if I hadn't tested in 1992, the mistakes that I would have made. Oli mwana muto, you are handsome, you are learned, you are born again.
Yes.
People would be saying, oh, you lost your wife? We have a girl, we have a daughter. And I saved them because I knew my status. So testing is really one of the pillars. And thank God that government has really done that well. So how do we see love? Where I come from, someone was invited on a party. And the card said, Ekaya Matayo, Nebetana Rukundo Mpango, which means
you're welcome. You're being invited.
With much love.
Yes.
So when this man reached, he found in the plate there were 2 pieces of meat, small ones. So he brought the card back. Did I read wrongly? Then he read and said, he called the young woman. You called me? She said, you are inviting me too much love. Where is love in this plate?
Yes.
So that's why I'm saying that we are at a testing stage, self-audit stage.
The bigger the love, the bigger the action.
Exactly. They have told us that the most religious continent in the world is the most vulnerable to HIV.
And right now they are also telling us that even though the care and support was much higher, right now there's a median of around 567,000 across just annual. The cost of the ARVs for one adult. And just in 2 minutes, just actually 1 minute, give us those 3 focal areas that you believe are instrumental. Focal areas, action points that should be
Focal points.
polished. Focal areas.
The first one, really.
Focal areas.
The first focal area
Yes.
is to look at the key populations. If this is where the virus is,
You cannot ignore them anymore.
yes, what are we doing? So that's the first area. The second area is to look at, so okay, now we have seen where it is, because they are like 30 times more infected, what. Now we have seen what love packages
Look like.
do we need to package for each of these groups.
Without calling them to church, because the good ones will run away from church.
By the way, someone said,
that happened as
someone
well.
said,
You bring the sex workers to church, call them
No.
to church in their form as they are, then the good sheep will start
Someone
moving around.
said-
That's why they don't want to get in touch
someone
with
said,
them.
preach the gospel, if necessary, use words. Can't them preach the gospel,
If necessary, use words.
if necessary, use words. Meaning that
Most of it should be action.
90% of the gospel of the gospel is love in action. I know a pastor who has ministry with commercial sex workers. She even allows them, when it is their time to meet the customer, he says, okay, you can leave the workshop. It needs tough love.
And a totally different way of looking at things.
So,
It totally,
so that's the first. You asked me three.
yes.
So I have given you the first one. Then the second one is to do the love packages for each of those populations. Then the third one is to look at our justice system. Our justice system, which is skewed against the sinned against people.
The sin
We talk
against-
about a lot about sin. We even know what a sinner looks like. We even know what sin does.
yeah.
But we rarely ask ourselves, what does sin do to the sinned against?
What does sin do to the sin?
Omwonoonyi ayonoona. Kati ayonoona kuki? Wabeerawo ayonoonebwa. Gwe bakoseza ekibigo. You have stolen the money. That is a sin.
Yes.
That money must be impacting someone who has lost the service.
Definitely.
Ayonoonebwa, the sinned against. The woman, I saw a boy who killed a girl student from UCU and even damaged the sexual parts. When they asked, he said, "Mugulira ntya essimu n'ayogerako ku balala." That sinned against woman
Yes.
has a father, has a mother, has siblings, has a God. So we need to look at the justice system that caters for the sinners but does not cater for the sinned against.
You look at the entire system, the entire continuum.
The justice of the Supreme Court now, I think, Echiri Kubinza, Lillian, professor now,
Yes.
did a study. Violent crimes committed by women. And she discovered something very important, that 60% of the women in Luzira killed in self-defense.
Oh, out of frustration and anger.
Yes, violated the first time, you violate me the second time, the third time something overwhelms me. So the sinned against
Have to really be
amateeka ne justice. I think that is where we need to, because now the church
yes.
and the mosques are combining with the justice system to increase the stigma and the shame and the denial instead of reducing it.
and looking at the other side of the
Yes.
telescope. You know,
so those three interventions.
and I want to thank you. We've run out of time. We definitely have to schedule another conversation. This has been quite a delight. I'm not satisfied, really. I would want to have much more. And I think we will be able to have this schedule another time. Thank you so much, Canon Professor Gideon Byamjisha, who is a teacher, theologian, global faith voice on ending iniquities as well as ending HIV/AIDS. Now, our topic today was analyzing the effectiveness of religious institutions in the fight against HIV/AIDS. Thank you so much for the insight.
Welcome.
We definitely have to have you back again.
Thank you very
and we
much.
wish you well.
Amen.
Thank you so much for joining us. Until tomorrow, meet us again. Find us here on Smart 24 TV, same time. Until then, bye-bye. Thank you so much.